Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For General Selva, I'd like you to talk a little bit about the long-range standoff capability for which you advocate. Talk about where it is in your priorities, what it gains the United States, and I'd also like you to address some of the concerns raised about unintended consequences and things that we may want to know in terms of the total cost of ownership of these strategically, in terms of what our adversaries or potential adversaries will interpret by that, and what that may invite from them.
Thank you, sir. Several quick points. First of all, the long-range strike system is integral to extending the life and the utility of our current bomber fleet, and it also increases the number of options for the use of our future bomber fleet. In this respect, the missile itself imposes a cost on any potential nuclear adversary because in addition to modernizing their nuclear arsenal, they also have to modernize their air defense arsenals. This is a strategy that we used in the 80s when we widely deployed the air-launched cruise missiles into our B-52 inventory. We believe that over the course of time, to keep the B-52 viable and buy us enough time to deploy the B-21, we have to have a long-range standoff weapon in our inventory that poses a challenge to increasingly sophisticated air defense systems in any one of the potential adversary nations that we might face. And so in that respect, the missile itself is an integral part of our modernization and replacement strategy. There are those who say that long-range standoff strike capabilities are inherently destabilizing. I disagree with that particular point for two reasons. One, it ignores the fact of deployment of those same systems by our adversaries. If you look at Russian deployments in their bomber force, they are largely composed of long-range standoff air-launched cruise missiles launched from what we would consider relatively old legacy bomber platforms. That's a challenge we're going to have to face and they're going to have to face. The second reason I think it is something we must introduce into our arsenal is if we don't have that capability in our arsenal, negotiating it out as a Type N class of weapon over time becomes increasingly unlikely. So the places we've had success in negotiating types and classes of weapons out of adversary nuclear arsenals in our strategic arms reductions talks has been when we possess a similar capability that poses a tactical, operational, and strategic problem for our adversaries. So I'm very concerned that the open debate about abandoning the system in the interest of cost actually puts us at a strategic disadvantage over the length of time.
So there's the argument on cost. You referenced the argument that it may destabilize or introduce some ambiguity that could be that could turn out badly for both sides. And your response to that seems to be that our adversaries have this capability, and it wouldn't be responsible for us not to match that. Would you then say if our adversaries did not have this capability, the United States would not seek to introduce it?
I think I would say that we should take that to the table and negotiate it in a bilateral, verifiable way so that we don't give up the option and the strategic leverage that we have in the existence of the system a priori.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.